Pete Alonso has officially reported to spring training in Port St. Lucie, but what is the ongoing situation between the Mets and Starling Marte in the latest Mets trade rumors? Let's get into it. All right, Mets fans, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP. It is February 17th, 2025, and Pete Alonso is officially in Port St. Lucie with the New York Mets, rocking the orange and blue, fresh off of a 2-year deal. But in this video, we are talking about the latest Mets trade news and rumors surrounding the Starling Marte situation. What is the situation? And how are both parties approaching this circumstance as spring training ramps up? Before we fully get into this video, please do smash on those thumbs up buttons if you enjoy the content. And if you haven't subscribed already, the channel is almost at 2,300 subscribers. Make sure to smash on that subscribe button. Help us reach that goal and many more milestones to come on the channel. I definitely appreciate it. And drop your thoughts and opinions down below. Some of the news that we've seen this offseason surrounding the Mets and Starling Marte. Most notably, we know that during the winter meetings a few months ago, the Mets were actively shopping Starling Marte and had a deal in the works to send him to Kansas City in exchange for a relief pitcher, but those talks fell through. We've talked about that news clip, article, report many of times on this channel, so that should be nothing new. The Mets tried to trade Starling Marte, they didn't, and so he's back in a very diminished role. He's fine with it though. And Starling Marte has been getting interviewed as well in Port St. Lucie, being asked about these trade rumors, basically shrugging it off and stating that if the Mets really wanted to trade him, they would have already done it by now, and that he expects to be a New York Met going forward. And clearly, he is going to be in a very diminished role, going from starting right fielder back in 2022 when he first joined the Mets. Obviously, injuries have played a huge part of his Mets tenure, especially in 2023. And now he's being kind of demoted at this point in the last year of his contract to a platoon right-handed DH option alongside Jesse Winker being the left-handed DH option. And at this point, it suits him very well because we know the split numbers for Starling Marte, righties and lefties combined. He does better versus left-handed pitching. There seems to be this very ongoing circumstance and situation where the Mets are being as open as possible, and they have not ruled out a trade for Starling Marte. And Anthony DeComo, even though the article essentially states that for now they haven't traded him and he's fine with the diminished role going into spring training, even Anthony DeComo is saying a trade is still not out of the question if you actually click on this article even at this time, right? They are still actively shopping Starling Marte around the league for any bidders. Pat Ragazzo on his X account as well a couple of days ago essentially stated that the Mets are still actively shopping Starling Marte, but they don't want to basically send him anywhere for free. He is due to make around $19.5 million, give or take, just around $20 million, just under. And the Mets are willing to pay down his salary anywhere from 7 to 10 million, maybe taking on half of his salary. But if they are going to pay down any further of that $20 million that he is scheduled to make, they want something in return that is a little bit more significant than what the trade talks initially have been, with Starling Marte's name in it as the headliner. So this takes me to the Will Salmon article that he posted on his respective X account. Do you see a pattern here, right? Anthony DeComo's tweeting about Starling Marte. Pat Ragazzo has been talking about Starling Marte. And now Will Salmon is continuously talking about Starling Marte. And when there's smoke, or where there's smoke, I should say, there is fire, Mets Nation. So again, nothing concrete as of yet. But the fact that all of these beat reporters are actively talking about Starling Marte and releasing articles about him at the same time is maybe indicative of something larger. And this is what Will Salmon had to say. Clearly, The Athletic is paywalled. I don't subscribe to The Athletic. So if someone does, please do write a little bit of a synopsis in the comment section. I would love to know what it actually stated. But this is what the title had to say from Will Salmon. The Mets haven't provided Starling Marte any assurances one way or the other regarding whether they will trade him, a league source told Will Salmon. They can't promise Marte they won't trade him, but they've done the next best thing. Be real with him and be straight up with him that he is actively probably still being shopped on the market. Now, again, it all depends on what the actual value in return is going to be. Can they get a decent relief pitcher in exchange for Starling Marte? Will they package Starling Marte along with someone like a Brett Beatty or another prospect attached to get something of value back in, clearing up this roster spot that Marte is currently taking? This comes days after David Stearns has preached roster flexibility. And with the amount of outfielders on this roster currently, Starling Marte, Jesse Winker, Juan Soto, Tyrone Taylor, Brandon Nimmo, the list goes on and on and on. Oh, did I forget Jose Siri? There are so many outfielders on this roster. So if you package a guy like Marte and get his roster spot free, you can either bring on another pitcher, another bullpen arm, presumably, or you can go ahead and upgrade the DH spot with another name around this league that the Mets are probably eyeing. What that name is and who that name is, I have no idea, but that's where I could see this heading down. And it doesn't have to be the end all be all here in this offseason. It could definitely come to a point where Starling Marte proves that he is healthy in the first half of the season, actually hits well against left-handed pitching like we know he can, and maybe they try to shop him to upgrade the roster at the deadline. So Mets fans, do you think the Mets actually make this move to send Starling Marte elsewhere during this spring training right now while we're having this discussion? Or do you think that he is going to open up the season in a Mets uniform and maybe the Mets find a trade partner down the line? Or do you think he just plays out the entire season in a Mets uniform? Because that is certainly plausible as well. On the flip side of things, while we're talking about trades, he is sort of invaluable to this team in terms of the veteran leadership that he brings. He's been around this league for a long time. He's played with a lot of these guys clearly since 2022, so he has that established rapport. Oh, and by the way, he is really good friends with Juan Soto. And as we know, back when the Mets were trying to push for Juan Soto and get him in the doors, Starling Marte played a pretty key role in that, according to Juan Soto himself. So let me know in the comments section. We're going live tonight at 7:30 p.m. Rob and myself for a spring training special roster predictions. We'll talk about Starling Marte as well, and we'll get into all the latest Mets news. See you all there. Let's go Mets. This has been the True Mets Talk podcast. I am out. This is something to monitor. Let's go Mets. Peace.